for this week. We have our Sardis cleanup on Friday. You'll receive 6 service hours for attending. That'll be from 9 to 1. We don't have the exact location yet. We're waiting to get that from the people we organize it with. But we'll meet at the Jackson Avenue Center at 8:30 to caravan over there. If you can't make it at 8:30 and want to come a little later, that's fine. We'll send out the location and email, so be looking out for that. We're excited to have DHG here, and Ellen will introduce the speakers.
Okay, so first we have Colin Lynch. Colin is an Ole Miss accounting graduate and master's in accounting graduate. He has worked for DHG in the dealerships industry line for the past 4 years, and he is focused on the insurance side of the practice as a senior associate. Second, we have Chris Glenn. Chris receives both his bachelor and master of accounting degree from Ole Miss. He has worked in the financial services, pharmaceutical, healthcare, manufacturing and distribution, consumer services, insurance, gaming, utilities, and government industries for more than 15 years. He possesses vital knowledge surrounding internal audit functions within Sci-Fi's, establishing risk assessments and audit planning integration specific to acquisitions. Before joining DHG, he worked in the risk advisory practice in a Big Four, where he led a large internal audit, Sarbanes-Oxley 404, and internal control project teams. And finally, we have Paul Morrow. Paul is an Ole Miss accounting graduate and master's in taxation graduate. He has 6 years of experience in public accounting. His focus includes state and federal tax consulting, tax credits and incentives, and transaction advisory work. He has worked with various entity types on issues including strategic planning, tax planning, compliance, and transaction advisory services. Paul has assisted taxpayers ranging in sizes from small, closely held family businesses to multinational Fortune 50 companies. Thank y'all.
Thank you. Colin, you need a word in your bio.
Yeah, we gotta work on that.
Yeah. Stay long enough and you can really appreciate everybody being here. As I was introduced, my name is Chris Glenn. I've been with DHG for about 7 years now, and as mentioned, I did get my undergraduate and graduate degrees here a long time ago. This school and this program has changed a lot since then. When I was my first year, we had 11,000 people on campus. And nowhere near what you guys have in this program. And I can honestly speak for all of us here at our firm, and honestly the other firms too, all the other graduates. All of us walk around in our various towns and our firms talking about how proud we are of this school, and we wouldn't be here if we weren't. So that has everything to do with you guys. It grows every year, and it's everything to be proud of. So really appreciate you guys having us here. Really all what we're here for tonight is just to spend some time with you guys, tell you a little bit about us, tell you a little bit about some of the opportunities that are out there for you in this profession, especially starting from this school and this program. It's not the end all be all, but we just want to tell you a little bit about some of those opportunities that are out there and give you a chance to ask us questions that may help you, as you progress, not just in the immediate future, but just in your future in general. I can tell you that my career, when I was in accounting school, I did not even know that what I do for a living, all that lengthy, wordy stuff that I threw out there at you, I didn't know that existed. And that's just the way this got it. Starting out with the degree you have from here and going to work with a firm like ours, there are things out there that you just don't even understand that you may not know that you can do. So our goal is to let you get a little glimpse into that tonight and ask any questions you might. Some brief stuff. We do have to talk about our firm. Dixon Hughes Goodman, we go by DHG pretty much. We're headquartered in Charlotte, North Carolina. We have 2 offices there, our main South Park office and also our Uptown office, which houses most of risk advisory services, which is what I do. And I'll tell you a little bit about that service line in a little bit and give these guys a chance to talk about what it is they do as well. We'll just start with our mission statement. This comes from our CEO, Matt Snow, on down. This is absolutely our values and what we believe in, but we build and believe in valuable careers with our people and helping our clients achieve their goals. And we worked long and hard on that mission statement, and we came up with the simplest thing we can, and we think that covers just about everything. So, if we build a valuable career with you guys, it's a lot easier for us to help our clients achieve their goals. Some quick facts. We have over 2,000 people in our firm. We're one of the 20 largest accounting firms in the U.S. That number sometimes we're at 15, sometimes we're at 17. But we're consistently there. We're at what I would call a super regional firm. We have offices in 13 states, but we do serve clients in all 50 states. We do that a lot because of Collins Group. They serve clients everywhere. So we're proud to say that. As you can see on the map there, I don't know if you guys can see everything. Definitely our footprint is in the southeast, but as you can see, we're spreading a little bit. If you notice up there in the very top right-hand corner, we do have an office in New York City. If you were way down here on the other side of the coast, we do have an office in Los Angeles, California, as well as far west as Dallas, Texas. So all of us here visiting you are from our Memphis office right there where you would normally find it. We've got about 100 people or so in our office, give or take, when we have interns and seasonal folks and things like that. It's about 100 people. One of our bigger offices. We do have international reach. We're a member of the Praxity Alliance with other firms around our size. So that gets us to, if you include our Praxity Alliance around the globe, we're the 6th largest accounting association globally. We have offices in 695 offices in 100 countries and almost 50,000 employees. So when we need to, we work well internationally with our partners. Just a little, we are looking at opening a London office if that doesn't get great. But that is part of my career.
Talking also about this proxy group that we're in, it's kind of a global group of different accounting firms. One of the things we're able to do through that as well is send our staff to other parts of the globe and then get staff from Australia or Singapore, different areas around the world that can come in, almost like a foreign exchange student, but we pay you instead. And we've had people from, most recently we sent one of our staff to Australia for 6 months with that firm that we lend our staff to. They also lend us the staff back for a pretty good extended period of time. So that's one good thing that's helpful with that group is it does give you a chance to go out and see some other opportunities. You can work with them to get people all over the world.
Absolutely. So these are some of the industries, because you can look at what we do in all these firms from different angles. One is an industry angle, one is a service line angle. As you heard on some of our bios, all the different industries we work in. Memphis is a unique market in that we get to see a lot of different service lines. We're not necessarily just one service line. So a lot of our folks in our New York office work only in financial services. That's just it's how it's worked out. But in our Memphis office, Atlanta offices, other offices like that, we get a little bit more variety. We work in things like agribusiness, construction. Dealerships is one of our biggest concentrations in our entire firm, and that is primarily done out of our Memphis office, the Collins Group, and he can tell you a little bit more about that. But I'd say our biggest industries are dealerships, financial services, which I do work a lot in. Risk advisory services works a lot in that in our Charlotte and New York offices. And then healthcare is another one of our largest groups. We've got some healthcare consulting service lines that work out of Ohio and Nashville and places like that. Insurance is another large service line that we work in. But obviously, as you can see, manufacturing, distribution, not-for-profit is big in our Memphis office. If you like getting involved in not-for-profits, we have some great not-for-profit clients. Public sector and government, we have offices in DC and Virginia that do a lot of work in those. Retail is just kind of all over. Technology and life services, again, just kind of all over. So, and transportation and logistics, I mean, that's Memphis right there. There's plenty of companies up there that do that. So it just gives you some examples of some of the different kind of industries. If you've thought of an industry, you've probably done some work in it. Look at it from a service line standpoint. You know, I think most students are used to things like assurance and tax, which is your I'm going to go audit your financial statements. That's your assurance services. I'm very much generalizing, but then you guys, your tax folks, are going to help buy your tax returns every year. I don't do any of those things. Everything else, matter of fact, I don't do much of what's on there, but my job is to not do your taxes, not do your financial statements, but everything in between. So we've got assurance and tax, and these guys can tell you a little bit more about that. It's everything that you think about. And then advisory kind of covers everything else. We are an assurance, tax, and advisory firm. But advisory literally means everything in between tax and assurance. So that in and of itself is a huge thing to get into, and we break it out into things like forensics. So when you think of, you know, fraud risk consulting, and you think of somebody calling you and say, a client calls us and says, we are pretty sure somebody stole something from us. Can you guys come in and figure that out? And that's through the use of just old school auditing, going in and following bank statements and checks around, or using technology to do that. We've got 2 digital forensic labs actually in our firm, one located in, I think it's in Greenville, South Carolina, and one located in Charlotte. So our groups are really getting into that. Our healthcare consulting group, again, it's exactly what you think. That's people going in and understanding revenue systems for hospitals and figuring out the best efficient way to monitor that. IT advisory, that's again digital and computer forensics, IT operations, including some IT internal audit, resource assistance, cybersecurity, risk advisory, which is these last 4 down here. That's primarily what I work in. So finance and process transformation. So just think of that as, hey, we're going to spin off a company. We need to carve that out or something. And can you help us get within our GL system and figure out how to break all that out, where all the journal entries are going to go, or help us restructure our general ledger process. That's what that can mean. Internal audit compliance, that's just literally going in and helping companies with their internal audits. Service lines are maybe like Sarbanes-Oxley support. Regulatory services, that's primarily, we work in banking there, where people get to understand the latest banking regulations and help our clients comply with those. So it could be like Bank Secrecy Act or something like that. And then technology services, which that can mean anything in our, but a lot of times it helps with things like IT implementation. Like if somebody wants to implement a new GL system, we'll literally help them through that and think about processes and controls and risks around that. I'm not going to go through every one of these, but I just sort of want to give you an idea of the multitude of services that we do. If you guys have any questions at all about any of these, just ask us. I promise I don't know everything, but I will get you there and we can talk about some of the things that our firm does. We do want to brag a little bit that we have been certified as a great place to work. We've gone through that for the last few years. 82% of our employees say DHG is a great place to work, so we're proud of that. It's built from a high trust culture where, you know, credibility, fairness, respect, pride, and camaraderie are paramount. That these are all in line with our values. These are just some statistics that get into some very specific questions that are asked as part of that Great Place to Work survey. I'm not going to go through all those, but really we just kind of want to say, you know, look, we are a part of this program, and it holds us accountable to our people, to make it a great place to work. And our leadership from Matt Stowe on takes this very seriously, and we are always striving to improve on all of those numbers every year. Inclusion and diversity, this is another important part of our firm's culture. You know, the 3 prongs of that, the way we get through our inclusion and diversity mission is awareness. You know, we are just be aware of the importance of it. Action, how are we going to celebrate and leverage the very and put action towards making this an important part of our firm. And then advocacy, which is, you know, we're going to connect and encourage this for all. This is a very important part of our firm's culture that's being talked about all the time. We want to celebrate people for their unique perspectives, and something we're very proud of. Right, I mean, that's just sort of a brief introduction, a little bit about our firm. If you guys have any questions about anything that was specifically up there, obviously ask us. Otherwise, we're going to maybe Kira's going to help moderate a little bit, and we're going to see if there's some other questions you guys might have about some of that Colin, Paul, and I can answer. I don't know if Colin or Paul, you guys want to introduce yourself real quick, maybe just a little bit about yourself, other than what was in your bio, and then Kira, you want to take it from there?
Want me to lead on? I'll lead on.
So we got most of the info from your bio. But
Yeah, no, I really beefed up my bio. So, you know, I went to school here about 4 years ago. I started work at DHG in dealerships specifically right out of school. And, you know, kind of our dealerships is a lot of times leaving school, people choose an area of work, assurance, or tax work, or especially. We're specializing that way, where for me, I specialized in an industry line, where my first couple of years I did tax work, I did the audit work, we did internal audit work, we did transactional work. So you kind of get to see all of it, but it's all for dealerships. And we work with dealership groups all from your average mom and pop one store dealership all the way up to private equity firms and public companies are buying dealerships, and they have 100 dealership groups, and we do work with them. So we've ranged in the size of business and their goals, but we all try to specialize in dealerships.
And I'm Paul. I graduated from here also in 2011 grad school. And so I started out right out of school working with DHG in just our core tax area. So when I say core tax, a lot of what a tax department will do is helping people file their returns. And you may think, okay, you know, filing tax returns, someone comes in and prepare their 1040, their individual tax returns. That's not really the kind of work that a firm like ours works in. What we mainly focus on is larger entity returns. We have returns that we do for clients where it takes multiple people, multiple months to prepare those returns. It's not things that we're getting done in a day. So you're working as a team trying to get that done for clients, learning a lot about different types of companies doing that. After doing that for a couple of years, I switched over and started working with our federal tax specialty services group. We got to get a new name, but working with that group, and really we help everything with anything you need tax-wise other than the preparation of your actual return. So a lot of times with accounting methods can be one you see up there under tax, cost segregation studies. These are things that help you make decisions of what needs to happen on what positions you want to take, how aggressive do you want to be. And then we have a separate team, the core tax team, that's helping you get that information onto returns. If you took we use the work papers for a company, that's kind of all the information the company gives us. If you took 10 sets of work papers and gave them to 10 different tax practitioners, you are going to get 10 different tax returns. There are multiple different ways you can handle issues, when you deduct things, when you don't, and so helping clients figure out how do you want to handle these situations. And it's not a gray area, or it's not a black and white area. There's a very gray area in the middle that we do a lot of research and memo writing for our clients of, what are the facts, what positions can you take, what are the risks associated with that. A lot of what I do is actually, I'll work with Collins Group, the dealership group, a fair bit, helping with structuring transactions. In the simplest terms, you all may have had a class where we talked about you can either buy the assets of a company, where you buy everything that company owns, you hire every employee that company had. That's one way to buy a company. The other option is you can buy the stock of that company. So I'm going to go ahead and buy, I'm buying the operating stock and everything that comes along with it. Really simplifying that, but there are hugely different tax and accounting implications of both of those. And so which one do you want to do? How do you structure it? These are all types of things that we have to deal with on a pretty daily basis. It's interesting because you start your week and you don't know what's going to come up. It could be you show up in the office Monday, you get a call Monday afternoon, you're on a plane Tuesday morning. It's a very dynamic environment, and I enjoy it. It's fun to work because you're always getting to see new and different things. You're trying to find solutions to new and unique problems.
Great opener. Hi everyone, I'm Kiera Moody. I'm the campus recruiter for our Memphis, Fort Worth, and California offices. I'm just going to serve as a moderator to kind of get some conversation flowing. This is meant to be very interactive. When you have to sit here and listen to someone for 45 minutes to an hour, it can become very boring. So please ask as many questions as you can. I'll go ahead and get it started with just saying a lot of you hear about going into audit and tax when you're coming out of school. And so basically what they're here to do is to kind of show you that there are different paths within external accounting or external accounting that you can take outside of just your straight audit and tax path. So what I want to start off with is basically, can you tell us what are some of the advantages to I'll start with Colin. Can you tell us some of the advantages or disadvantages of starting off specializing in an industry versus seeing a bunch of different industries and then making a decision?
Honestly, that was actually arguably my biggest fear going into the job. I went through the interview process, and I had a decision to make of where I was going to go work. I remember still talking with someone in the firm. It's like, I don't know how I feel. I don't want to be pigeonholed working for car dealerships the rest of my life. It was kind of my thought process. But honestly, once getting there, I found it to be a huge advantage because I was able to see, the full process and the scope of all of our work. Like I said, I was doing the tax work, to traditional tax work, to audit work, to the transactional, to helping set up some controls if they asked, and of dealerships. So I was able and still get to learn about how the full business works and kind of understand the whole accounting process. Talking with some folks around our firm, I mean, the auditors only know how to audit, and the tax folks only know how to do tax returns, but sometimes there's a little bit of both, and when you work together, the goal is to help your clients. So I found it extremely beneficial to see the whole process.
And it's interesting too, is you don't realize until you get into a specific industry, you may say dealerships, I don't want to get pigeonholed into that, but until you get into an industry, you really don't realize how large that industry is. That you can work an entire career and not know all of the people and all the things you need to know about that industry. Dealerships is a great example because they have a big conference every year called NADA. I think it's annually. It's National Automotive Dealership Association. There's only 2 places in the country they can actually do that conference, either Vegas or Orlando. Nowhere else in the country has a big enough conference centers and hotels to handle that many people. That just shows you, you may think of this as a niche industry, but how many hundreds of thousands of people all across the country are involved in that, quote unquote, small boutique industry.
Yeah, and as Chris mentioned before, it's one of our national service lines. Since being there, I have clients where I travel from the East Coast, Florida, and Carolinas, all the way out to California. So we cover about every single state in our dealership practice. And like I said before, that ranges from small mom and pop dealerships to small groups like Canon down the street, all the way up to something like a Berkshire Hathaway Automotive. So you get to see a lot, and I've enjoyed it, that part so far.
Great. We'll switch over to
Great.
that was awesome. We'll switch over to Paul. I have a question for you. You mentioned that you started off in your tax 4 practice. How does that differ from what you do now, specializing in salt or doing transaction services?
So my day-to-day is definitely different from where I started, but what really helped me out is, if I'm advising our clients on what they need to do in some of these situations, until I had done it and seen really how it gets put on the paper and what happens in these transactions, until I'd spent a couple of years really doing that and learning the ins and outs, it'd be difficult for me to be able to advise them on these types of situations. And so, it's a great way to learn by doing it, and just getting that experience of working with that core tax group for years. The knowledge you learn by being able to see so many different types of companies, whether it be in different industries, different size of companies, different entity structures. If any of you have had Tax 2 or grad school, you may have heard of, there's partnerships, S Corps, C Corps. There's a lot of different ways a business can be run. And so when from what I started out doing to what I do now, I need the same knowledge that I had coming in with what I've learned doing it, but I'm still applying the same types of things, just using them in a different way. Where what I'm trying to do now is help our clients get to the answers so that they can put them down on tax returns to file, rather than trying to help them actually prepare those returns themselves.
More awesomeness. Okay, so moving on to Chris, you mentioned that you started off, or I don't know if you mentioned it, maybe I just know, that you started off in audit and not in risk advisory. So how, as a student, would you gain exposure to that different service line instead of going straight into audit or tax, if you're looking to get more so in the advisory sector of public accounting?
Well, I mean, Starting off, I started off in external audit for a Big Four firm that no longer exists. You might read about it in textbooks.
I think there's a picture of them somewhere in
Yes. And I loved it. It was great. I learned more in that first couple of years. I stayed for about 2.5 years. And I wouldn't be where I am today without those first couple of years. So I do recommend, or I don't not recommend starting off in tax or audit. I mean, you've got to learn the ins and outs, debits and credits, the language of business. It just is. It's what we do. And if you find yourself after a couple of years wondering if there's something more, or you find yourself getting more interested in sort of the process of why something's working, you're like, this is interesting, I see it all ties out, we're good, now move on. Or why did that work? Did anybody think about this? Or I'd really like to understand how that process works. Or how are we sure that what they say they're doing sort of a risk and control based mindset, which I had. I didn't even know how to describe it that way at the time, but I had it and I just had those interests. I just sort of heard about these groups that were starting to come up at the firm that were doing those kinds of work, and it was sort of just starting to happen at the time. And there was a couple big projects going on in the summer, which back in the day, summer for external audit was definitely not very busy, or there was still more true busy season. It's changing a little bit, although in audit and tax are still true busy season, but back then they were definitely summer was, not as busy. So I just flat out asked, said I'd like to go try this project, when a lot of people didn't want to do it. It just sounded more dynamic and problem solving. I got a question.
Yeah, so when you look for students to hire for maybe a non-traditional audit or tax job, what kind of qualifications would you have to see? Because I hear for people wanting to go into advisory, they have to do something like 50 case studies while they're in undergrad, or they have to have do a lot of work like that. So what would you do? What's your ideal candidate?
I don't necessarily. My ideal candidate's a curious candidate.
Yes.
Somebody who comes to me and asks me what it is that I do. A curious. Honestly, that's the best way I can say it. I love a lot of our candidates are CPA students, so that's great. Some of them are finance. Some of them are in today's world. They're obviously I'm not gonna lie. There's a lot of IT candidates catch our eyes. A lot of people with MIS degrees or minors and things like that. I've got one of the people I just hired is a CPA major and MIS minor, or a computer science minor actually. So
For data analytics,
Yeah.
which we have a program for here now.
but ideal, not necessarily it's curious candidate, somebody who is interested in all these other things, somebody who literally comes up to me in events and starts asking me about these things. That's right off the bat an ideal candidate for me.
I'd kind of to reiterate what Chris said, it's someone who asks why, not just this is, here's what we need to do and get it, but ask the questions, why are we handling this particular situation this way? And by asking those questions and showing, by asking why, you learn what to look for, and then you may see it come up on another client, or you know what to look out for. Someone who's always wanting to learn and find out new things. And then the biggest thing that we see is a need for very strong Microsoft Excel skills. It doesn't matter what area of accounting you go into, audit, tax, any kind of advisory. Microsoft Excel is the program used more than anything else in accounting, and the stronger you are in Excel, the better off you will be.
Just data mining, data gathering, data managing, for lack of a better word. It doesn't even call it analytics. I don't really need to get into the specifics of that. I love all those programs, but just the mindset of just being able to manage data, mine data, find stuff, make it make sense. Yeah,
Look for patterns.
do it quickly.
Yeah.
And kind of to go off of that, speaking more in a general sense, it is different to get into risk advisory versus tax or audit, because that's typically what recruiters or firms come here looking for. So just mentioning that you're interested in that, or figuring out the people that you need to talk to, like if you're interested, say, in risk advisory, and you come up to a recruiter and say, hey, I'm interested in this, what is it that I need to be doing, what classes should I be taking, what can I do? Just letting someone know is the first step to it. And then going from there, because it is more competitive than other markets like tax or audit, because you're hiring tax preparers and auditors all the time, just making sure that you have a resume that looks the part. Are you in those classes? Are you taking systems? Are you focusing when you get your master's, or you're focusing in data analytics or in tax or whatever it is that you're focusing on. Just make sure that it goes behind what it is that you're looking to do, if that is risk advisory.
It sounds like a lot like what y'all are saying is that you like it when people ask for what they want instead of just doing or taking what was laying there on the table like the traditional roles.
Yeah, if that's what you're interested in, yes, but it doesn't mean that you have to go against the grain and say, hey, I want to definitely do something different. Or you could get into it like Chris did and see that you don't like it as much as, like you get into audit and you hear about something like we do work at, like he said, Berkshire Hathaway Automotive. Hey, raise my hand, I'm interested in that, can you put me on that project? Or just letting management know once you get in there. It doesn't always happen right off the bat, but once you get in there, it definitely, they're growing and they often cross reference between the groups, whether it be someone that's coming in from audit to help out with forensic evaluation, or whether that's someone that's coming in from tax to help us in transaction advisory things.
And, I don't want to speak for other firms, but I know our firm, I don't think we would ever pigeonhole somebody and say, you started an audit, you were there for your career until you're a partner one day.
No.
Yeah.
If you get in and you're working in audit or tax and you say, I really want to work on more of these risk advisory type things, and you let whoever you're working for know that, anything that comes up that looks like that, they're going to try to schedule and get you to work on. At the same time, Chris has a project come up and say, we had something that just got greenlit this morning, I don't have the people, is there anybody who could help me with this? Well, Colin said he wanted to do that, and you can borrow Colin for a while and see if he likes doing that. Give people a chance to work in other areas of the firm, try different things out and see what they like. And, ask people, what kind of projects do you enjoy working on? We're going to do everything we can to put you in those projects, because if you're doing something you don't like over and over again, that's not a way to make a career. Doing things you enjoy working on and getting as many opportunities as you can to find out, A, what you like, and to do that work is really what we want to achieve.
Yeah, I mean, a great example would be, we have one of the largest clients in the firm is happening right now, and this large project we're working on, and we didn't have enough of our local people to do it, so we're borrowing people from other service lines in the firm. There is a senior from our tax group out of our Jacksonville office who came up here because he wanted to try something different. He had the same curious mindset. He liked tax fine, he was really good at it, but he wanted to see something else, and he was off busy, so he wanted to try this. This client and this project values him so much, and it's lit such a spark under him and an interest he didn't know he had, that he is moving to Memphis, joining my practice, and is going to help us grow this client for years to come. And I guarantee you he's going to go further in the firm because of that. And stuff like that does happen. So there's no right way to do it. But I get your point, though, about the case studies. I think I get what you're saying. I know of that sort of thing that you hear about. Some of the skill sets we look at more that I think doesn't get talked about enough. Writing skills are big, and being able to articulate and communicate the things we find with our clients, whether it be problems or solutions, gap analysis, or next steps. And that comes in written work, being able to formulate your thoughts, being able to communicate orally, and also written. So there is some of that. I've seen that done. But yeah, that's just a long-winded way of saying a curious client or a curious candidate who asks why and can articulate what it is that they're asking.
It's almost as much non-specific accounting traits as it is accounting specific.
Y'all are going to be smart accountants. I'm not
Yeah.
worried about that. Was there another question here?
You mentioned Excel is important to be able to use effectively. What other, and you mentioned data analytics, I know that there's a lot more software out there that's more powerful and more efficient than Excel, but what types of software do y'all use?
We use IDEA, but what you can do in Excel is pretty, it's not until you get to tens of millions of lines long that you need to go out to something beyond Excel. There are IDEA, other software out there, other things from Caseware, but Excel is almost a universal language. If I send a client an Excel file, they know I can open it. If I send it back, I know they can open it. So we try to stick to that as much as possible. And there's a version of it called 64-bit Excel, which really gets rid of the limits where it used to be a file could only be so big. That's pretty much gone now. So Excel is almost universally accepted for every. Your target, you can do looking at analysis for every transaction of a public company for the past 3 years. 20 million lines long. You can do that in Excel almost as efficiently as you can do it in anything else.
I mean, yeah, I would agree. I mean, in certain service lines, you get up into our IT advisory service lines up here, you get into like digital forensics. There's some very sophisticated software that these folks have on some very sophisticated, giant, powerful laptops that I don't get access to, $10,000 laptops and software that can read email and all that fun stuff. And we absolutely have that, but I do have to agree with Paul for the most part. I mean, the project I was just talking about, which is a huge, large Fortune 50 company that's going 1/3 of their company, breaking it out into another company, and we are digging into SAP and breaking it out in a way that'll show it how it can all be transferred over with journal entries. We're using Excel, and that's exactly what the client uses, and that's what they want. It's all going to be tied together, and like Paul said, you get into that skill set and those, the different versions of it, and that's what we use a lot. That's what the client uses a lot. All the clients, no matter how many, these are Fortune 50 companies, so we use some of the other software, but
Very, very limited instances. It's 99.99% the Excel what we're working in, managing any kind of large data sets.
yeah, I would agree with that.
So, what type of client excites you guys the most, or maybe more specifically, what type of project excites you guys the most that has you interested in investing in the client?
You go first?
Yeah, I'll go first. Because of what I do for a living, I'll say this: the project that's not the same. I don't do the same thing. Rarely in my career have I ever done the same thing over again. And especially I'd call it the last 5 years. I don't, when Sarbanes-Oxley first hit, we did a lot of SOX testing, which was the same, and that gets pretty boring after a while. And it's fine, it's good work to have, but I'd say the last 5 years, maybe more, but every project I get is a client, and I don't have a lot of annuity work. I don't have a lot of the same work every year. We've got different projects all the time. So the projects that probably excite me the most are the ones that the clients come to me and say, we have a problem, can you fix this? And it's always a project, they've got tons of smart people at their company, they don't want to do this one. And they want us to dig in and figure out why. And that's kind of gets to the whole point of the kind of candidate that we were talking about. I need people who are fine rolling up their sleeves, getting into a conference room and saying, this problem that a client dumped on our desk, they want us to fix it, they want us to come up with a solution, they want it to be done by, in time for this audit committee report this audit committee meeting that's going to be coming up, and I need to do a report on it, and can you guys do that? And we have to manage our risk in the kind of projects we take on that we've maybe never done before. We have to be careful about that, but those are probably the kind of clients and projects that, and from a client standpoint, it's the ones that get that, the ones that know they're asking you to do something tough, and then they're willing to sort of collaborate with you, and even team with you. I like the projects on the large clients that I have. We work with a lot of the big companies that are out there, and oftentimes we work with the clients. We'll be on a team with them. There'll be 2 or 3 people from their team who have been set aside to work on this, who have the expertise, who know where things are, and we'll bring our people, and it's very collaborative. And those are probably the ones I like the best.
I'd say back to managing risk like Chris, but my favorite client is the aggressive one. A lot of what I do is dealing with what's called tax controversy, and so the IRS will come in and audit a client. I mentioned there's a lot of different ways you can handle one transaction. IRS comes in and says, whatever you did, we don't agree with it. We are assessing you $5 million in tax. Client says, I don't think I agree with you. I'm going to get I'm going to hire DHG. They're going to represent me on this issue, and they're going to say that what the client did was allowed. They're going to substantiate it with case law, other guidance that's out there, and if you want, we're going to take this all the way to court. And it's even gotten to the point where the IRS says, we give up. We're not saying you're right, but we're saying we don't have the resources or the time to fight you. We'll give you 80% of what you claimed if you agree not to sue us. These are, that's actually what happens. In appeals, it's what the IRS considers the hazards of litigation. What are the odds that you sue them? What are the odds that a judge in tax court or federal district court, wherever you decide to sue the IRS, what are the odds that you win against them, and how much in government resources are they going to tie up fighting you? So a client that's willing to not only take that aggressive position from the start and trust you, but look, this doesn't, this seems aggressive, and we understand it is, but we believe in our position. It will also stick with you and let you support that position and substantiate it all the way to the end. It takes an aggressive client to do that. They get a notice saying you owe $5 million. People panic. We see that and see, oh, this sounds fun. So that's kind of what I see as an aggressive client who will let you, give you a little bit of leeway to help. You know, it's not tax evasion, it's tax avoidance. We don't want our clients to pay $1 more of tax than they are required to by law. And that's our job, to make sure that they don't pay that extra dollar.
What's supposed to say for me? It's kind of like the transaction work, where in dealerships, buy sells. So it's transferring dealership from one owner to another. It's all like works with some of this on the front end, where we have like an asset purchase agreement for asset purchases, and then you also have stock purchases. Generally, dealerships are all asset purchases, and you kind of go over a weekend and kind of people, you evaluate the worth of the assets, and then you go through and you're in a negotiating room with the buyer and the seller, and they're choosing what they want to buy, and if it's in the agreement, we kind of go through the agreement and try to say, we're buying this or we're not buying this. And I enjoy that because we're sitting there with, let's say we're helping the buyer, and we're sitting there with them as a team. We're like, hey, there's actually, these parts are aged. They have $150,000 worth of parts aged over a year. Those are worthless. Let's not buy those.
Yeah.
And you kind of get your worth in that, in the room there. You pay for your own fees, and you're helping the buyer save, a substantial amount of money.
Is that you're sitting there, you're representing the buyer, and the seller says, well, you're going to buy all my parts inventory from me, and I'll sell it to you for $250,000. And that's where someone like Colin comes and said, well, you may not want to do that. Those parts, they said 70% of them have been sitting on the shelf for over a year. They're going to be tying up capital. You may not ever sell them. So I'd say,
Can't return them.
Yeah, you can't send them back to manufacturer. They're for cars that aren't made anymore. Say, look, we're not paying you $250,000 for that. We'll give you $50,000 for that. And those negotiations go back and forth, and that's all part of these buy-sell agreements that you'll see. And it's literally, like you said, you normally go in on a weekend when the dealership's closed, and your goal is to have this deal ironed out by the time the dealership opens.
Yeah. You get the deal ironed out for Monday morning for the transaction to go through. So that's what I really enjoy, because you're working with either the buyer or the seller, and then at the end of it, it's a good deal.
So that's another great example, Colin, of sort of our service lines crossing over with our industries, because what Colin's talking about there is that you see this valuation over here to the right. We have valuation experts. There's certifications that are related to valuation. And it is a service line unto itself. They have their own practice leader. But we have valuation experts who cross over and work in and with our dealership group. Absolutely. And that's a little bit of what he's talking about too. So that's a whole entire service line that crosses over with a dealership, with a industry. What else? Any other questions?
Another pop-up if no one has one. So you mentioned that you never really do the same work twice. Both of you guys mentioned that, except for Colin. So with that, do you have
3-4 times.
with that, do you have a typical busy season, or is it more project-based, or what does that look like? What does your busy season look like if you go into risk advisory or tax specialty?
Mine, for the most part, we do not have a risk advisory services specifically does not have a busy season that is anywhere near what traditional tax or traditional audit does. We do have our busiest time of year is usually right now. It's usually the late summer and fall. That's it. If you're doing what I call old school bread and butter risk advisory services, we work a lot with internal audit directors and second line of defense, kind of like risk management groups, risk and compliance. And for the most part, their work, they say early in the year in January, they're still going through their budget, they don't really think they want to spend any money with you. It's usually in about July they realize, oh, we're not going to hit our audit plan. And the audit committee's mad at us, so can you guys come in and help us? And so we usually get busier this time of year, but to Kira's point, it is also project-based. We get big enough projects, they'll go on for 2 or 3 years and we'll be really busy in January and February. But we don't typically have, at least in my service line, have what, like the hours of the concentrated busy season from January to April or something where, it, you know, and this is dying in our industry a little bit anyway, but the 60, 70-hour weeks, we're more consistent, you know, just throughout the year with just a few bumps here and there. Our EKG doesn't go like this and then go like this, it just kind of goes like this the whole way, so.
And kind of to Chris's point, with the huge ebbs and flows you used to see in the accounting profession of, you know, really, really busy in the spring and fall, downtime, summer and winter, that's really going away now that businesses are, the access to information is so much more now that they're not having to wait until, you know, year end when after they close their books before they can do any kind of planning or see how the numbers are. People at companies can use daily reports of how things are shaking out. And so we're really staying busy a lot more throughout the year. With what I do, since a lot of it is supporting our tax department, you know, it's not as much of a busy season, but obviously the more we're doing returns around April and now October, so C Corp returns are due, if they were extended, are due on Monday. So we're pretty busy this time of year, and so it picks up around this time of year just because you are supporting those other people. Will say, hey, my client did X, Y, Z. What are our options? What can we do with this as we're preparing this return? It picks up a little at that point, but the other side of it is you do have so much project, non-recurring work that you're busy when the client needs something done.
Yeah.
It could be, you know, you're sitting there for a week and you get really good at solitaire and find the end of the internet. It could be the next week you were, you know, 3 weeks on an airplane to 6 different cities. It really depends on what's going on at any given time, what kind of projects you have.
That's a great segue into, you hear a lot about tax being more stationary and going to the same desk every day, and audit being more out in the field, whether that be around your local area or to states outside of where you currently reside. What does that look like for the service lines or industries that you're in? Is it more stationary work, or is it where you just mentioned you could be going to
Yeah,
different
so
places?
for the core tax, I would say it's more, you know, stationary, where more often than not you're working out of your own office at your own desk. And personally, I like that. You can have your computers all set up how you like. You're comfortable. You're not crammed with 13 people in a conference room meant for 6. It's comfortable. The flip side
Paul's
of that
got a
is-
really cool office.
the other
He's
side
got it
of
set
that
up
is-
just the way he likes it, I can tell you that.
Sometimes you need people, you need to be out at your clients because it's so much easier to get information when you're sitting there face to face. That's not always possible. As Colin said, we have clients in all 50 states and several different countries. I can't run up to, you know, Toronto, Canada and say, hey, I need to sit with your controller of your Canadian subsidiary, be there this afternoon. So working remotely gets more and more important. On an audit, because you have those longer projects, normally 2-3 weeks of field work, that's where it makes sense of, hey, I need to bring my whole team out there. You know, we're gonna go up to Columbus, Ohio, we're gonna schedule 3 weeks there. You know, we're gonna fly everybody up there at once. It's a lot easier to do that on an audit side. That's not to say that tax, you're always working at your desk. It just it works better that way, because it's, on an audit, you'll be working on one client maybe for weeks at a time. Tax, you may work on 3-4 different clients in a week, just as pieces come in, as things start to wrap up. So it's definitely different as far as if you like to, you know, travel more. Audit can be great, but the downside is, you know, you're going to I don't know, Abilene, Texas for 3 weeks. It's normally not beautiful parts of the country, and when you're there, you know, you're working a fair bit, not getting to enjoy the sights you might want. I think Allen, Pennsylvania would be part of the country.
Yeah, I don't go there anymore. I'll let someone else go there.
But on the fact that you do get to travel, but it's normally just, it's a lot better to go meet with the client for a day, get the information you need, and take it back to your office where you can work more comfortably.
Yeah, and I mean, I would definitely say just our firm and our industry is just changing along with the rest of the world too. We're all remote workers if we need to be. For what I do, my office is literally what I say my office is in my backpack. I can work in clients I'm at most of the time because part of my job is to always be around in case I need help with a new project because I need to keep growing our business because I don't have any annuity work. So I spend a lot of times with clients. Even if I've got some clients that give me more space than others, and even if I'm not working on the client that day, if it's in a good part of town, it's gonna be central where I need to go, I'll set up there because I kind of want to be walking the halls. But I work in coffee shops, I work at home, I work in airports, and I work in the office sometimes.
We have a lot of people even in our own firm, or in our Memphis office, we have somebody who works in Colin and dealership group. She actually lives in Nashville, works out of her house in Nashville. We have, someone that works in Wilmington, North Carolina, for one of our offices. And we really have people all over to Chris's point, the industry as a whole is going really more where you can work remotely. The information can share so much easier now, and where you physically sit is not nearly as important as it used to be. But
Having said that, being in front of your clients is always,
Yeah.
you can't replace that. So.
I was about to say, I'll also like throw in, a lot of our travel, doesn't matter if it's tax or audit, a lot of it depends on the client.
Completely.
A lot of our clients, they want to save money, so we don't fly out there, because we can do everything remotely. And then
water parks.
a lot of our other clients take us to water parks, so they like hanging out. But a lot of clients have actually, our clients have liked the personal service when we come out there and touch. We'll try 1 year not there, and they go, well, I don't like this whole just email thing, so we start going back out there. So a lot of our big tax jobs for dealerships, we actually travel to. You think of your stereotypical dealership owner, or tend to be a personable type, kind of like a car salesman. So they don't like doing business over the phone and online. They're big face-to-face people.
So I mean, I guess really the best way to say that is just we're flexible to what clients need.
Yeah.
And honestly, flexible to what we need. That's the good side that goes both ways. Is we're flexible to client needs, but because of all the technology in today's world, between me and my wife, I've got the most flexible job. I'm the one who goes home and take care of the cable guys coming and all that stuff. It's because of this job and what we do. So I love it.
Any other field questions?
How common is it to get hired right into an advisory service? Well,
Right out of school?
I've heard a lot of people say that you do audit tasks, you have experience probably.
It depends on I'll be honest with you, it depends. Most cases, and honestly in Memphis, most cases it's somebody who did either start in industry or started in audit or tax, and that's not because, it's because just the way our service line works, growth patterns are different. I don't always need people exactly when recruiting season hits, or when this time of year for you guys. Some schools and some offices we do.
Atlanta is really big.
Atlanta is starting to get an internship program for risk advisors, or like a direct pipeline of interns. Charlotte is, which is good. They're some of our bigger offices in terms of their pipelines. We typically, like for interns or staff, I kind of start with, sharing with some of the other service lines, which our office, that's kind of our culture anyway. That's how our internship program works. Everybody kind of, I've had plenty of interns start with us that have expressed an interest before they came in during the summer and said, hey, can I work on a risk advisory project while I'm here too? And we always make that happen. So, but yeah, I mean, we do hire lots of folks who start in other service lines or come out of industry as well. So it's just, it kind of depends on how many projects I've got going on at the time. But some of our bigger risk advisory offices, 300 of our risk advisory people are over 200 are in Charlotte, and they can see their pipeline coming a little more and say, we're going to hire 10 interns this year or something like that.
And from our tax advisory hiring, we pretty much do only experienced hires. And that's not to say we don't take people, as Chris mentioned, from other areas of the firm and use them when we can, whoever expresses an interest. But until you've worked in the tax world for a number of years and seen a lot of different things, it's difficult to be thrown into an advisory role where you have to be so flexible and things need to happen so quick. So generally, if someone working full-time in that role, we're looking for 4 to 5 years of experience in either public or private accounting.
We have time for one more question. If anybody has a last minute question? No? Okay, let's give our speakers a round of applause. Thank you guys for coming. thank you everybody for coming. Please be sure and sign in if you haven't. And then our next professional meeting will be next Wednesday with more initial.
Thanks for your time, guys. Appreciate it.